Welcome, everybody, to the Hot and Cold Podcast, Sports and More. I'm your host, David Miller, joined today by my co-host, Andrew Watkins, who does not have a functioning camera. So you're going to get to look at that beautiful Maryland crab there as you get to look at my beautiful face. It's just kind of fitting for everything going on currently. This is the second time we've sat down to record this. And unfortunately, I'm recording on a Chromebook. So it is physically impossible to record anything. So we've went through about 15 different recording softwares. We've went through 2 different recording sessions. It's been a whole mess. But now we're finally getting to sit down and record everything. So, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Andrew Watkins. You probably know me as Waddy Watt on TikTok. I'm here. You can't see my face. I'm so sorry about that. But we move. It's fine.
Great introduction.
Thank you.
For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm David, better known as BearsCool2211 on TikTok. I mainly talk about the Chicago Bears and the NFL as a whole. I'm more of a football guy. Andrew's more of a basketball guy. So we figured, why not throw both of our talents together and start a podcast? Obviously, we both have a little bit of knowledge on the others, like focus sport, I guess you could call it. But the reason this is called the Hot and Cold Podcast is because I'm very hot-headed. I tend to get very angry and expressive when I'm talking about things I'm passionate about, and Andrew's a little more laid back. So also, as the name implies, sports and more, we will be discussing sports and more on this podcast. So without further ado, let's just jump into some sports, starting out with the NFL playoffs. I kind of want to breeze. I kind of want to breeze through the wild card round here, since it's basically irrelevant with the games starting tomorrow. So, the Bengals and the Raiders. Andrew, do you have any thoughts on this game?
I just love to see the Bengals move on, but honestly, at this point, I just love the fight that the Raiders put up.
Mm-hmm.
I love Derek Carr as a player. Mm-hmm. Love how hard he fought for this entire game.
Yeah. Derek Carr is one of those guys, man, that I just feel like does not get the credit he deserves. In my eyes, he's a fringe top 10 quarterback. I don't know if he's quite there right now, but he has days where he is, days where he's just outside of that top 10. I thought he played very well against Cincinnati, played well against a tough defense. Only really made one mistake with that interception there at the very end, but, he was just trying to force a play to, send it to overtime. You can't really get mad at that. And then the other... moving on, the next game that day was the Patriots-Bills game, and there's really not much to say here.
It was hilarious.
Yeah. I actually, with my wildcard predictions, I went 5 for 6. And this was the one game I was wrong.
Wow.
Because I thought to myself, Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. He stopped Peyton Manning before. He can stop Josh Allen. And then Josh Allen said, no, fuck you. I'm going to play the best game of football I have ever played. What was that?
Smoked him. Absolutely smoked him.
Josh, I mean, he played the first perfect game of football I think the NFL has ever seen. It was absolutely insane what he was able to accomplish. And, the Bills' defense as well was a major focal point in this game. Mac Jones looked scared. He's a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. Even Bill Belichick can't make up for that. But yeah, there's really not much else to say about the game. The Bills just absolutely manhandled the Patriots. And then moving on, we have the Eagles and the Buccaneers, and another game where it was just a far superior team manhandling another team. Tom Brady came out firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, he really showed up.
Mm-hmm. Jalen Hurts looked really, really rough in this game. I still believe in Jalen Hurts. I think he's a solid quarterback. I think that he should definitely, still be the guy for Philly going forward. But he was rough in this game. The big thing was Philly, was a very run-heavy team. And you can't run on that Buccaneers defense.
Yeah, I was going to say the Bucs shut them down real good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you want to add there? That's another one of those games where I feel like there's just not a lot to say. It was just
it's just there's just a better team on one side of it. I think that commenting on Jalen Hurts, he's competing for a job, a starting quarterback job that he should have, for sure.
I don't know if I'd necessarily say he's competing. I mean, Gardner Minshew's a solid backup. But I don't think you want him starting as your franchise quarterback. But moving on to another team in the NFC East. This is my favorite game of the weekend, the 49ers and the Cowboys. I'm a big Deebo Samuel guy. Deebo Samuel is my favorite player that doesn't wear a Bears jersey. And watching him just run all over the Cowboys was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Trying to think what all happened in this game. All the fuckery at the end with
I
the QB draw.
That was probably the worst play call I've ever seen in my
Mm-hmm.
entire life. Like I don't like you could try to explain it to me from that guy's perspective and it would not still work.
The best way to look at it is when you're in that situation, right? When it's the end of the game and you're just kind of like trying to stop the other team from getting into the end zone, you're playing your DBs back. They're playing all the way back, just trying to stop the deep ball.
Yeah.
So running the ball up the middle with your quarterback actually is not the worst idea. It's just Dallas was not in a position to do it. They had no timeouts.
Yeah.
There was no way to stop the clock whatsoever. Dak couldn't get out of bounds. He slid too late, and then I don't blame the referee for what happened. You know, he has to touch the ball before it gets snapped again, and he tried his best to touch the ball as quickly as possible. So that was just bad play calling. I don't know if that was McCarthy's idea. I don't know if that was Kellen Moore's idea. But, you know, me and you both being fans of teams that are looking for head coaches right now, obviously me with the Bears and you with the Giants,
Yeah.
Kellen Moore is a guy that's been on a lot of people's radars. And I think that game, if not the end of the season, that game at the very least put a lot of people off of Kellen Moore, including myself. I was
Yeah.
dead set on Kellen Moore being the Bears' next head coach. I'm completely out after that. I cannot excuse it.
Yeah.
Another thing with that game I want to bring up, I actually made a TikTok about this. Troy Aikman said it very well that Dallas did a poor job of getting the ball into the hands of their playmakers. CeeDee
Yeah.
Lamb, who's, you know, arguably their best receiver between him and Amari Cooper, obviously, he was a non-factor in this game. And that's not good for him whatsoever because the Niners have a weak secondary. Their corners were playing weak coverage. And when you have something like that, you want to be able to take advantage of it. You want to be able to force the ball to your, you know, your big time targets. And Dallas just wasn't doing that. They were trying to get cute. They were trying too hard. You know, they were leaning too hard into their scheme, I guess you could say. And you know, that's something I have a big issue with a lot of NFL teams right now is a lot of them, a lot of offensive coordinators and play callers as a whole really lean too much into their schemes to really, uh, you know, get back to the basics of football. Because at the end of the day, the 49ers are a perfect blueprint for this. If you get the ball into the hands of your best playmaker, you're letting them make plays, and that's going to win you games. Deebo Samuel, my boy, perfect example of that. Like they found out he can run the ball. They're putting him in the backfield. They're throwing it to him short. They're chucking it up to him. Whatever they got to do to get the ball to Deebo, they're doing, and it's winning them games. If their quarterback wasn't Jimmy Garoppolo, they would win a lot more games. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, they'd be like a Super Bowl contender if they had any other quarterback other than Jimmy Garoppolo.
I still think they are a Super Bowl contender.
Well, that's true, but they'd be like they'd be a lock. They'd be a lock.
Yeah, absolutely. If Trey Lance pans out,
yes,
the Niners team's scary.
I'm horrified.
Yeah. Moving on from that though, second to last game, Steelers Chiefs. I hate the Steelers.
Second favorite game because I hate the Steelers.
Yeah, I just loved seeing Big Ben get absolutely trounced in his last game. It was ugly. Mahomes showed everybody why he's the best quarterback in football, I think. He had 5 passing touchdowns. Big game from the Chiefs. And this actually begs a question that I want to bring up, and I want to hear your opinion on. So I know you're more of a basketball guy, so I don't know how familiar you are with the process, but the NFL has 7 teams per conference now that make the playoffs. It used to be 6, and now it's 7. They added that 7th seed to, you know, more revenue, right? It's just for money. But the idea is now only the best team in each conference gets a bye week instead of the top 2. And since they've added this 7 seed, there have been 4 games. You had the Bears and the Saints last year, which was a slaughter. The Bears did not belong in the playoffs. You had the Chiefs and the Steelers this year, which is a slaughter. The Steelers did not belong in the playoffs. The other game was the Eagles and the Buccaneers. The Eagles did not belong in the playoffs. Buccaneers slaughtered them. And then last year you had the Colts and the Bills, where the Bills were clearly the better football team, but the Colts kind of brought it back a little bit at the end. But regardless, it wasn't like a great football game or anything. So it kind of begs the question, was this move pointless? Is there really a point to that 7th game if it's just going to be a bye week with a little bit of practice, basically, for whoever the 2 seed is in the conference. So, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna put the ball in my own court here. Like it's the same thing as the play-in tournament. It's like a
Yeah.
consolation prize.
Mm-hmm.
Like why? Like you're fighting to get into this play-in and then you lose one game and you're out. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like you just do all that extra work for nothing. I think that it's just like it ruins the competitiveness a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
you're basically going in and there's a more bye weeks basically because you're playing a team that like has barely on their last legs made it to the playoffs. And
Yeah.
it rewards teams that have been in like the middle of the race the entire
Mm-hmm.
time. It should be like playoffs should be something that only elite teams go to.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just a cash grab at the end of the day. Like, we all know it. And I'm not going to complain too much because extra sports are extra sports. I'm all for it. As long as it's not the Bears getting their asses beat on national television again, I'm all for it. Like, that Saints game was embarrassing, pun intended. It was bad. And the fact that it was on Nickelodeon too just made it so much worse. Which that's another thing too. I wanted to bring up the Cowboys Niners game was a Nickelodeon game, and now 2 straight years, two things have happened. These are now like NFL traditions with these Nickelodeon games. The losing team's quarterback has won the MVP award, being Mitchell Trubisky and Dak Prescott,
Yeah.
and an offensive skill position player from one of the two teams has dropped the F word live on Nickelodeon.
That is my favorite part
George
of the
Kittle, I
entire
believe it
process.
was, for the Niners this year. Yeah, I'll be out. I was going to bring it to you. This is great. I think that's a perfect way to kind of summarize what's going on right here. This is scuffed. We're not professionals. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm recording this on a program I had to buy for my Chromebook. I'm recording this on a Chromebook. That's how bad this is. So sorry about that. But anyways, as I was saying, Cordero Patterson last year with the Bears dropped the F word. So I think that's a fun little tradition at the very least to get out of these extra playoff games. But overall, yeah, I think they're kind of pointless. They're pure cash grabs. There's really no point in them whatsoever other than money.
Yeah.
But that being said, that's kind of the wild card round. Not a lot going on in a lot of those games. I was excited going into the wild card round. I was expecting a bunch of good football, and it just didn't happen. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that Bengals Raiders game and the Cowboys Niners game were pretty much the only two good games.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but moving on to the divisional round. Now we're actually going to have some good football this weekend, and I'm
Yeah. Oh
very
my
excited.
God.
Starting out the first game, recording this on Friday, so tomorrow at 4:30 with the Bengals and the Titans. This game's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry's coming back for the first time since it's been a while. It's
Yeah.
since the fall. It was like October, I believe he went down. So that's going to be interesting to see how he kind of. Hold on, before we do that, we completely skipped over a game.
Yeah. I
The
was gonna
Cardinals
say.
and the Rams game. Dude, this game was so weird. Like, going into it,
Yeah.
I had no expectation. This was the only game I actually didn't watch. I fell asleep during the first quarter, and I mean the Rams trounced the Cardinals, so there's really not a lot to say. I
Yeah.
do want to give a shout out though to Cam Akers, who completely recovered from a torn Achilles in 6 months to come in and play in this game, and I think I had 80 rushing yards, which
Yeah.
is extremely impressive. But other than that, nothing happened. It was bad. Kyler Murray shit the bed. It was not a good
Yeah.
football game.
I was expecting this to probably be like one of the best games
Mm-hmm.
of this round, and it was just not. The Cardinals have been like the most like wishy-washy team from
Mm-hmm.
week to week in the entire NFL, and they like
So,
yeah, and then they basically completely fell off. It's like been
mm-hmm.
a joyride, like up and downhill for the entire rest of the
And
season.
that's kind of been a consistent thing with the Cardinals. It happened last year as well, where they started out pretty hot and then fell off towards the end of the year. And I don't know if that's a coaching thing. I don't know if they just have a string of bad luck, because I know they were dealing with injuries with Kyler Murray going down for a little bit, and then D Hop didn't play in this game, and things like that. But it's something at least to look at. Maybe the Cardinals are an early season team and then are going to collapse at the end of the year every year. And then the Rams
Yeah.
are kind of in the same vein where I thought they were cold, even though they had won 5 of their last 6, which is weird to say, but like this Rams team was just so underwhelming
Yeah.
coming into this game. Like they're a super team on paper. This is a super team. They should be coming. And I mean, I guess they did win by 23, so that's kind
Yeah.
of showing
It's
shades
not
of
it's not
that.
nothing.
But going into this game, it was like I had no idea how it was going to go. This was the only game where I really didn't have a strong conviction either way. I did think the Rams would win just
Yeah.
because the Cardinals collapsing was rough, but it was a weird game. But regardless, on to the games that actually haven't been played yet. Bengals Titans. As I was saying, um, Derrick Henry's coming back, and that's going to be big. The Bengals are going to be missing at least one of their interior defensive linemen with Larry Ogunjobi, which is huge, obviously, for Derrick
Yeah.
Henry. However, the Titans are an extremely underwhelming 1 seed.
Yeah.
Like I don't think anyone was thinking about the Titans for the last 4 weeks of the season. The fact that
Yeah,
they even made
as
the
soon as they started being inconsistent, I was
Mhm.
like, oh, so they're not the real deal. And then they came back and
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't know. It's weird to me that they're in this position just because you'd figure this team without Derrick Henry would be dog water, right?
Yeah.
Because I like Ryan Tannehill. I think he is another guy that's like a fringe top 10 quarterback, but not to the same extent as Derek Carr. Like I think Derek Carr can take over a game and win it for you. I just think Tannehill is consistent.
Yeah.
But this is a team that almost let the Texans come back on them. Got beat by the Steelers, got beat by the Patriots. Actually, did get beat by the Texans earlier in the year. I mean, it's a weird team. Then you look at it, they've played some of the other teams in the AFC playoffs. They got beat by the Bills. Got oh no, they did beat the Chiefs. I forgot that was when the Chiefs were kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This team, like you said, they're weirdly inconsistent, and the fact that they're the 1 seed is kind of weird. So I think the Bengals have a really, really nice chance in this one. I think the Bengals are the hot
Yeah.
hand right now. I think
For
that's a
sure.
big thing that a lot of people don't necessarily look at is the importance of momentum week to week, especially in the playoffs. The Bengals, I mean, they're just the hottest team in football right now. They're so exciting to watch.
Yeah.
Everything going on with them is great. Everything's clicking. Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow is playing like America's sweetheart right now. Jamar
Yeah.
Chase is a stud. Everything is everything that I was worried about with the Bengals going into this year. Jamar Chase's drop issues, their offense not being able to generate explosive plays, the offensive line, which has still been an issue. I think Joe Burrow is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. Yet they
Yeah.
still managed to win the AFC North, even with their quarterback going down. I think 50 plus times. That just tells you the AFC North is kind of dog water this year. But
Yeah.
I just like shitting on the AFC North. I hate that division so much. It's
I
such a
think everybody
scary
does.
place. Yeah, that
Yeah.
entire division is like the definition of black Air Force energy.
Yeah. It's like the hood of the NFL.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but I like the Bengals' chances in this one. Now,
Yeah.
I definitely think the Titans have a chance. I'm not saying this is like a lock for Cincy or anything, but I really, really like the Bengals in this one. So,
I think it
or,
really depends on how the Titans use Derrick Henry because like they could be
mhm.
timid like because of the injury or whatever, but if they come out swinging and Derrick Henry doesn't go
Yeah,
down with an injury and
yeah.
he's as good as he was,
It's all on the shoulders of Henry this week. If Derrick Henry can have a game, then it's going to be a game. But if they can't get Derrick Henry going, then I
yeah,
don't think Brian Tannehill's winning you a playoff game by himself. Unfortunately, as I said, I like Tannehill, but I don't think he's that
yeah,
guy. So then moving on to the second playoff game, we have the Niners and the Packers. And I don't think this is going to be a blowout like a lot of people are predicting. I don't think
yeah,
the Packers are going to come out and smoke the Niners because, again, the Niners are hot. The Niners look good. The Niners, the only thing that's going to stop them is Jimmy Garoppolo.
yeah,
Fred Warner, he got hurt last week and he's playing, which is huge because Fred Warner's presence on the football field, especially for the Niners team, is tremendous. It
yeah,
is like I think Fred Warner's the best linebacker in football.
I would
And
agree with that.
yeah, the Niners have a really weak secondary. Their corners suck.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive how their linebackers are able to mask that. Like the Niners are a team that like I said, their corners aren't going to lock up your number one receiver, but their linebackers might. And
Yeah.
that's such an like not something you see very often where the linebackers are like the head of the coverage for a team. And
Yeah,
and
it's
I
very
love that.
interesting.
I love that. The linebacker is my favorite position in football, and seeing linebackers play like that, linebackers being that important to a team is tremendous. And the Packers, they're getting David Bakhtiari back for this game. I think Jair Alexander's coming back. I can check on that real quick. And if that's the case, that's a little bit different,
Yeah.
because those are two guys they've been missing all year. D-back is the second best offensive tackle in football, in my opinion, behind Trent Williams of the 49ers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it says right here, Jair Alexander and D-back are questionable, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling is doubtful, which is big. That means the Packers, outside of Devontae Adams, don't necessarily have a deep threat. And that's how you beat the Niners. You got to go deep on them, because if their linebackers aren't there, if you're relying on or if they're relying on their corners and their safeties to shut down a pass game, then it's
They're in
over.
big trouble.
Yeah. I don't know as well. Another big part of this game is going to be whether or not Nick Bosa is healthy. He suffered a scary, scary injury against the Cowboys. It says he has been cleared from the concussion protocol 22 hours ago. So
Oh
Nick Bosa
God.
is going to most likely play in this game. So that's huge for the 49ers as
That's
well.
horrifying. That's horrifying.
Yet, if D-back doesn't play and Nick Bosa does play, that is huge. That is absolutely massive. Like I said, it all comes down to not Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo. If Jimmy Garoppolo plays like he did the first three quarters against Dallas, the Niners have a shot. I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but they have a chance. If he plays like he did in the fourth quarter against Dallas, it's over. The Packers are going to smoke him. However, it seems like the 49ers are also Rodgers' kryptonite in the playoffs. He's lost to them in the playoffs a couple times in recent years. So fingers crossed for the 49ers.
Yeah.
However, I do think the Packers will win, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But don't count the Niners out.
They're still hot.
Mm-hmm.
The Packers. They've been hot all year.
It's the Packers. They have Aaron Rodgers. Matt LaFleur is a good coach. He's not held back by Mike McCarthy anymore. So yeah, I think the Packers will win here. Is there anything else you want to add for this game?
I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have himself a game. I think no matter what, he's going to come back and he's going to come out firing. I think if Jimmy Garoppolo throws like 2 picks, it's over.
Yeah.
All he's got to do is make like safe throws. Don't throw picks. You don't even have to. You can just like hand the ball off to Debo or Elijah Mitchell, and then just survive is really what I think Jimmy Garoppolo's job is.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, I want to check real quick. I'm not exactly sure where the Packers' run defense ranked this year, because if the Packers' run defense was kind of mediocre, or I don't think off the top of my head it was anything too special. I could be completely wrong, but if the run could absolutely be the game changer here. So if we look this up, in the meantime, the Bucks and the Rams are the next game. If there's anything you want to say about that.
It's going to be a nuts game. I'm so excited for this. Is probably the game I'm most excited for. I think it's going to be one of the best games of the playoffs, personally.
Yeah, I mean, you have Brady and Stafford going head to head. You cannot go wrong with that.
I think both teams are pretty much super teams at this point. Probably the 2 best rosters left in the playoffs. But it'll be like 2 superpowers like just battling it out. It's going to be so fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I'm completely stupid. The Packers had a top 10 rush defense in terms of yards allowed. So.
Oh, God.
That's rough. That's rough. Although, if there were a team to kind of upset the Packers through the run game, it would be the 49ers. But back to the Bucks. the thing here is that the Bucs' biggest weakness right now is they have a beat up secondary. Everybody's out, like literally everybody. I genuinely, I got to double check to see even what corners are starting in this game. But because of that, Matt Stafford is primed to have himself a game. You know, he's an extremely solid quarterback. However, he has had a lot of consistency issues this season, and if he even makes a couple mistakes, even really a mistake or two, he's got Brady on the other end. And
That's how close the game's going to be.
Yeah, well, I guess it isn't. I guess it isn't too bad for the Bucs. It looks like Sean Murphy Bunting, Carlton Davis, and Jamel Dean are okay. Oh, that can't be right. I can't. Yeah, why are we? Why are you showing me the start of the season? I want to see current. I don't care who was there at the start of the season here. Injury report. This is what I want. Jesus.
Months ago.
Okay, so they're missing Sean Murphy Bunting. He's listed as questionable with a hamstring injury, but other than that, the rest of their corners are there, so it's not as bad as I thought. But you're going up against, as the Buccaneers, if you're going into this game with a beat up secondary, you're going up against the most likely offensive player of the year in Cooper Kupp. You're going up against a guy who, on any given day, can be a top 5 quarterback, depending on how he feels, basically. You're going up against Odell, who apparently still has gas left in the tank. I was completely wrong. I thought he was the issue in Cleveland. Apparently it was Baker.
Yeah.
You're going up against Van Jefferson, who's been an absolute stud. So, on paper, this should be a really good game. And it's not even like the Rams can kind of lead on their run game either, because if the Buccaneers are shutting down the Eagles' run game, they'll absolutely shut down the Rams. The Eagles have the best run offensive football, and they completely made it a non-factor. And you're dealing with a guy who has one start on the year due to his injury, so he's not going to tear up the Buccaneers most likely. And then on the other side, the Buccaneers are dealing with injuries to their offensive line. I know Tristan Wirfs went out against the Eagles, and that could change the game. If Tristan Wirfs is not playing, that's a game changer. It looks like him and Ryan Jensen are both back at practice, according to the Tampa Bay Times 7 hours ago. So if they play, I'm not concerned at all. I think the Bucs take this one if they play. However, if Tristan Wirfs does not play in this game, it's a complete game changer, because you have Aaron Donald, you have Von Miller, you have Leonard Floyd, you have Sebastian Joseph Day, you have this insane front seven in LA that if you're missing, the other best tackle in football this year behind Trent Williams, most likely, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. Brady is going to get eaten alive if that's the case.
Yeah.
I think this is very much going to be a Brady type game where it's short, quick throws, getting it out as quick as possible, getting it to the running back, getting it to the tight end, that kind of thing. I know that's like a very basic analysis of how this game needs to go down, but I feel like this is definitely a game that needs to just come back to the roots, because that's what's going to help the Buccaneers here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this game, like I said, I think all 4 of the divisional games are going to be absolutely fantastic. But the final game, this is the heavy hitter. We have the Bills and the Chiefs. You have Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. And this game is going to come down to defense. This game is going to come down to whether or not the Chiefs' defense can keep up. The Chiefs' defense started out horrible this year. Like, absolutely terrible. The Chiefs had a terrible start to the year. Mahomes started out slow. His weapons were basically non-factors in his games. His defense was rough. It was not a good time for Mahomes and the Chiefs. And then about the midway mark, it was that Raiders game where they smoked them by like 40. And that was kind of the turning point. And they started to look like the Chiefs again. It's like, oh, okay. There's still something there. Mahomes is still the most talented quarterback in the NFL. You still have Tyreek, you still have Travis Kelce. Everything's clicking, right? And the Bills were the best team in football the last 5 weeks of the season. Josh Allen, like I said earlier, was playing the best football of his the last 5 weeks of the season, then came out in the first round of the playoffs and played.
Dominated.
first perfect playoff game ever by a quarterback. So it's going to be this game is either going to be a complete shootout. Like Mahomes is either going to overpower this Buffalo defense because it was the best unit in football, but Mahomes is Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
Like you can have the best defense in football, but at the end of the day, the way the NFL is now, it doesn't really matter almost.
Yeah.
Trey White's still hurt. That's a big thing. So if the Bills cannot contain Mahomes, that's going to be the end of it. But I
Game
definitely
over.
think that if it comes down to a shootout, Buffalo can win.
Yeah.
Josh Allen has proven that he is fully capable of that. So I really don't know which way to go here. I'm leaning towards the Chiefs just because they have that experience, just because they have that mentality that they need to prove everybody wrong because people thought they were done already because they're supposed to be a dynasty, right? However, the Bills are right there with them talent-wise. Like it's so close.
Yeah, I think Stephon Diggs has to have a great game
Mm-hmm.
because of like the past, because of like the rivalry, because of him
Mm-hmm.
staying on the field. He has to have a big game.
Yeah.
And if he does, then I think he could, like, if he has an insane game, like the one that he should be primed for based off of him staying there for like inspiration to become a better player. He
Absolutely.
should have an insane game, and if he does, then I think they'll be able to match whatever Patrick Mahomes is throwing at him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's as someone who loves defense, right? Defense is my favorite side of the ball. I'm a big believer in defense wins championships. I mean, I'm a Bears fan. That's like our thing. I want this to be a shootout so bad. I want this game to end like 60-53. Like
Yeah,
I want it to be stupid. I just want it to be absolutely stupid because it would be so much fun to watch. Because these quarterbacks are so much fun to watch. Mahomes, the way he can improvise, the way he can get outside of the pocket and just make things work. Like when he was, Super Bowl last year against the Buccaneers, throwing balls, laying flat in the air. That's insane. And then Josh Allen, the way he whips the ball, uh, when I don't think I've seen a quarterback with a faster
it's
release.
insane.
Sorry. Yeah, it's crazy. These two guys are so much fun, and they're going to be the face of the NFL. And that's what's so exciting. You have these two. You have Justin Herbert. You have Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, guys like that. It's so exciting to see what we're primed for. And Joe Burrow as well. Can't forget Joe Burrow.
No, of course not.
We're primed for such great football going forward with all these young quarterbacks. And genuinely speaking, this is the start of a Peyton Brady rivalry right here.
Yeah,
This is the start of two Hall of Fame quarterbacks going at it every year in the playoffs. And I hope, unlike Peyton and Brady, one of them isn't always going to get the best of the other. Because I like both of
yeah,
these quarterbacks. I want to see them both succeed. I have a little bit of bias here for both teams in terms of who I want to win rather than who I think, because the
yeah.
Bills have Mitchell Trubisky, and I want to see Trubisky get a ring. But the Chiefs have Kyle Long, who is my favorite player in all of football. And I would rather see him get a ring, I think, even though he doesn't play. Like, he signed with the team, got hurt, and then was just like, fuck it, I'm not going to play. But he's still there, so if they win, he gets a ring. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think personally I want the Bills to win, but I think the Chiefs are going to win.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think that's valid. Like I said, could go either way easily, but I think I'm going to take the Chiefs too. I think across the board, I'm going Bengals, Packers, Bucks, Chiefs. Those are the four
Yeah.
teams I think move on. I think the only one of those picks I'm like super confident in is maybe the Bengals pick
Yeah.
because it's just the X factors for these teams. Like the big time playmakers, depending on what they can do. They all have had issues. Like I said, Derrick Henry coming off injury, Joe Burrow having a non-existent offensive line and just kind of being the hot hand right now. Eventually it's going to stop.
Yeah.
In the 49ers-Packers game, the Packers might not have D-back, probably will, but they might not. And if that's the case, Nick Bosa is going to eat, and Aaron Rodgers has this weird thing where he chokes against the 49ers in the playoffs, and the 49ers just have Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. And then the Rams, Stafford's so streaky and inconsistent, and the Bucks might not have their best offensive linemen, and the Bills might not be able to keep up with Mahomes, and the Chiefs might not be able to stop Josh Allen. It's so crazy how all four of these matchups you can pretty much key it down to one player's performance. One player
Yeah.
will change the outcome of every single one of these games. And granted, most of them are quarterbacks, and that's just kind of how football is.
Yeah.
But the Bucs game is especially intriguing considering it's an offensive tackle that we're looking at, and I love that. As a big guy, I love that.
Yeah.
I love seeing the big
It is
guys
really cool.
kind of get their credit. I also want to make it clear real quick, just kind of going forward for now. We're new to this. We have no idea what we're doing with the podcast. We're not analytical geniuses, so I'm not going to be ripping stats off the top of my head every 5 seconds, like, oh, the Bucs allowed 14 pressures in 3 snaps or whatever the fuck. That's not going to happen right away. Eventually, I'll get more used to it. Right now, I'm kind of working having a dual monitor setup type thing. I have 2 laptops in front of me. One of them has a Pro Football Reference open with schedules, and then my Discord where we're recording this. But eventually, when we get more comfortable, we figure things out, it'll get a lot better. But for right now, this is very amateur. This is just the two of us sitting down and talking sports and recording it. And that's kind of what I want the vibe of this podcast to be, at least.
Yeah.
I don't want it to seem like, we're 2 analytics nerds. I don't want it to seem like we're 2 no-lifes. We're just 2 dudes that like sports sitting down and talking about it.
Just chilling.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And, it'll eventually get into more than sports. Like, I got my hoodie on. I'm a big Marvel guy. Andrew is too. We're both big Star Wars guys. Sure. Yeah, it's we're gonna get into a bunch of things. That's why we put the little and more in there, just so we're not confined to one thing. But sports will be the main focus of this.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see kind of what we can get into. So moving out of football for a moment to touch on the NBA, Jerami Grant's in trade rumors, and as a Bulls fan, that is very intriguing. Because I feel like Jerami Grant would be just that last little piece that sets us over the hump. Andrew, how do you feel about the Jerami Grant rumors? Like, I said earlier, basketball is more your thing, so I'm curious to hear your input.
He would definitely make you guys the best roster in the league, like the best starting 5 at least.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is like 5 insane players. You have like an MVP candidate, 2 like all-star starters, and then like Vooch, and then you'd have Jerami Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Jerami Grant's taking like a step back, so I'd be a little cautious with.
Really? Okay, I haven't followed the Pistons at all this year, so
it's not a very large step back. It's like literally like 2 points per game, but he's not very efficient as a scorer. But I think it's just because he's on a terrible team.
Mm-hmm.
Like he takes a lot of the shots on that team.
Yeah, I'm going to be 100% honest. With how the Bulls are set up, I'm not too worried about Jerami Grant being a scorer. If he's taking a step back as a scorer, by all means, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
We have DeMar, we have Zach, we have Vooch, we have Kobe off the bench, we have Caruso, we have Lonzo. We have plenty of guys that can put up points. I need a big man to guard the perimeter. I need a big man to, like a wing that can play defense. And I know Patrick Williams is kind of that, but he's hurt. He hasn't played. Yeah. And I think Jerami Grant, to an extent, would fill that role better just because he's a better basketball player, obviously. And trading for Jerami Grant rather than just kind of sitting on Patrick Williams kind of looks like a win now move. And the Bulls are a team that are in a position to win now. I'm looking at this trade right here from NBAanalysis.net. They have the Bulls getting Jerami Grant and Rodney McGruder for Patrick Williams, Troy Brown Jr., Derek Jones Jr., a first from Portland in 2022, and a 2026 second rounder. And I don't hate that. Bulls might be giving up a little much. I'm not quite sure what Grant's trade value is, but I don't hate that trade.
I feel like if you're trying to get Jerami, you'd have to get rid of Patrick. And I feel like that's a good move because the timeline right now is DeMar's prime.
Right.
He's, I think, 32. Let me check. He's 32 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And like even after he's done, you're gonna have Lonzo, and Jerami's 27, and he's already in his prime. I think it's a great trade if you want to win a championship right now, and I think it's also not that bad if you want to win like 2 or 3.
Yeah,
down the line.
yeah. The Bulls are a team right now. Like you were talking about the timeline. They're set up to win. That they are absolutely set up to win. And I love Patrick Williams as a piece for the future. But if it comes at the cost of winning a championship, I would much rather trade him away and get a guy that's established, a guy that
Yeah.
I know is going to provide something that Patrick Williams isn't quite to yet. So yeah, I love the concept of trading for Jerami Grant. I think I brought up to you as well. I saw a Lakers offer. I don't know if it's official, but it was Talon Horton Tucker, Kendrick Nunn, and a 2027 first for Jerami Grant. And
I
I don't know. How do you feel about that offer?
I don't think that's enough. I think the Lakers are super high on THT for like basically no reason.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they wanted to trade for James Harden because they wanted THT in return,
Hmm.
and they're like, no, we want THT.
Yeah, I don't understand the Talon Horton Tucker hype. Unfortunately, I
And
mean,
it's
I'm not sitting down and watching Lakers games. So maybe I'm missing something. Maybe something is going completely over my head. Maybe he's just like the grittiest team player to ever play, but I don't get the hype. I don't
I don't
understand.
either.
Like I can
I don't really
remember
either.
when the Bulls were starting to struggle. Uh, the Zach to LA rumors from last year before the trade deadline when we went and got Vooch. I remember when that was a thing, and it was always Talon Horton Tucker and two firsts. That was the offer I always saw for Levine. I was like, what the fuck? That makes no sense. How? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like like I said, I don't know everything about the NBA. I will be the first to admit I have a very like baseline knowledge of the NBA. I know my Bulls. I watch the Bulls, and that's about
Yeah.
the extent of it. But that's why we have you. That's the beauty of this. We play off of each other. We fill out each other's weaknesses, so to speak.
Yeah.
Speaking of weaknesses, let's talk about the New York Giants.
Oh.
So, as I said
Ooh.
earlier, Andrew is a Giants fan, and the Giants
Unfortunately.
got themselves a new general manager today, Joe Shane, who was the assistant GM in Buffalo, and I love the signing. I talked with you a little bit before we started doing this today, and I made a TikTok about it earlier. I wanted Joe Shane for the Bears very badly. I thought he was a great candidate. Ironically, or not ironically, but funnily enough, I made a TikTok about him when the news first came out that the Bears were going to interview him. And this is a funny story. I pronounced his name Joe Shone. And when I did that, I got a comment and it just said Shane. And I clicked on the account and it was Joe Shane's daughter correcting how I pronounced her and her dad's last name. And I just thought that was funny. And ironically, that's not the first run in I've had with a NFL executive or an NFL personnel's child on TikTok. The other guy was an executive. It was Dan Campbell's daughter who liked one of my TikToks a while back when I said something about her dad. But I really like the Joe Shane hire for New
Yeah.
York. I think you guys were stuck with Gettleman for however many years, and I think it was smart to go with a fresh face, a guy who's never had a GM job before. He was an assistant GM. He was a scout in Miami and then a scout in Carolina. And we're talking about a guy that is responsible for drafting Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams and uh, the Pouncey brother, Mike Pouncey, that was with the Dolphins, and then Ryan Tannehill as well. He has a nose. Like he knows
Yeah.
talent. He knows talent, and that's the big thing with the Giants now. And they're looking at their head coaching candidates. They're looking at Leslie Frazier, who I don't like as a head coach. They're looking at Brian Dable, who you better stay away from because I want him with the Bears. If the Giants end up with Joe Shane and Brian Dable, I'm going to be so pissed because that was the exact duo I wanted in Chicago.
Yeah.
Um, but do you have any thoughts on this?
I think that it's crucial that we hit on these next few years
Mm-hmm.
because we're in like one of the hardest situations in the entire NFL because of the roster that we have. Like I like Saquon, but at this point, like, do we trade him or
The best ability is availability, and Saquon is never available, unfortunately, as
yeah,
talented as he is. Um,
I mean, I feel like the issue has always been the offensive line,
mhm.
but it's I feel like it's way too late to fix that issue
Well, the
and to
offensive
like
line
stay
kind of
with
picked
Daniel
itself
Jones.
up this year. It's still
Yeah.
not great, but there's promise there. Andrew Thomas is really good. Um, I can't think of literally anyone else on the Giants' offensive line, but Andrew Thomas had a solid year, and that's a good
Yeah.
building block.
And this draft is really good for offensive linemen, is what I've seen.
Hmm.
So, and we have two very high picks. Two very high picks.
Yeah, you're welcome for that.
Yeah, man, thanks. But like I feel like at this point there's like four like different positions we need to fill.
Hmm.
Like if we trade Saquon, we need to fill that area with at least a decent running back, and then we need a new QB. We need a new offensive
So you're over Daniel
line.
Jones.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very tough situation
Okay.
because I feel it could be at this point that he's never had a good offensive line or whatever,
Hmm.
but he is 25, I think,
That sounds right.
and that like if you're it's 24, if you're not showing like any sort of excellence at that age,
Hmm.
I feel like you're just like doomed to be like a mid or backup quarterback your entire career,
Yeah.
and we don't need that. I mean, he threw 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions this year
Yeah.
as the starting quarterback for the entire year.
Yeah. It's been a lot of regression for Daniel Jones. It looks like he's just gotten worse every year. Um, I mean, I guess that's kind of what happens when you draft somebody out of Duke, but I like Daniel Jones. I think there's something there. I think the right coach can bring something out of him, and I don't think he's necessarily like a stud franchise quarterback, but I think he's a guy that's at the very least can get you like a Kirk Cousins type quarterback where you're winning 8-9 games in the regular season. And if you have a guy
Yeah.
like that and you can build good weapons up around him and build a defense up around him and get a good coaching staff around him, basically if you can make everything else go right around a guy
Yeah.
like that, um, you can win games with him. So I guess Daniel Jones isn't necessarily the answer in New York, but I would like to see them give him one more chance. I would like to see them. I really don't want him to do it, but I would like to see him with Brian Dable. Brian Dable completely fixed Josh Allen when he came to the NFL. I don't know how much you knew about Josh Allen when he was coming in, um, but he completely reworked his throwing motion in
Yeah.
his rookie or his sophomore year, and he went from looking like a bust his rookie year to the first half of his sophomore year. He looked like the MVP, and then he kind of fizzled out a little bit, and then he came back this year, and one of the best quarterbacks in football. So that's why I like Dable so much for the Bears, is because he knows how to work with quarterbacks. He knows how to make a quarterback look really good, and I want him to do that with Fields. But I wouldn't mind seeing him with Daniel Jones. I do think if you go the route of keeping Daniel Jones, you got to go with an offensive minded head coach. And a lot of the names I'm seeing like to the Giants just aren't that. I'm seeing a lot of Brian Flores, which is, after everything that went down with Tua, not a great idea.
Yeah.
Brian Flores was not big on Tua and made that very vocal to everyone in the locker room, including Tua. So if he didn't like
Yeah.
Tua, he's not going to like Daniel Jones.
He's gonna hate Daniel Jones.
But the one thing I don't want the Giants to do, the one thing I really don't want them to do, and I was a big fan of this, a couple weeks ago, but the more I think about it, I don't want them to panic and trade for Russell Wilson. I don't want them to
Yeah.
panic and make a big trade for a quarterback because that's going to require 2 first-round picks. You're going to have to give up both of your top 10 picks to get a quarterback that is, making a lateral move. Like Russell Wilson looked bad this year. He did
Yeah.
not have a good year. Granted, he was playing on an injury, and the Seahawks were horrible. But if the Seahawks were that bad, if he was that bad with the Seahawks, who are a better football team than the Giants, it's
Yeah.
only going to get
It's gonna
worse.
look awful. Yeah.
So I think, at the very least, unless there's a guy sitting in like the second or the third round, this is a weak quarterback class.
Yeah.
Everything outside of the quarterbacks is phenomenal. This is a really, really good draft class. But the quarterbacks are weak. If the Giants can find a guy in like the second or the third round that they like, if you have a guy like Desmond Ritter slip, I think that would be a fine decision to take a chance there.
Yeah.
If you have a guy in the mid rounds, but those first 2 picks, you got to get one of these defensive studs. You got to get one of like a Kyle Hamilton, or if an Aiden Hutchinson slips or something like that. And then I think you got to go offensive line, like you said, in the top 10. But I do think you can make worse decisions than running it back with Daniel Jones for one more year.
Yeah.
The Giants, like you said, the Giants are just in a bad spot. There's really not a lot going on with them. They paid Kenny Golladay all that money, and he did nothing.
Has no effect. Yeah.
He did nothing. But I think the Giants are an interesting team. I think
for sure.
If they play their cards right, this team can flip things around really quick. Like, there are pieces there. Like, I really like Kadarius Toney.
Yes.
I like Saquon, obviously, if Saquon can get his shit together. But I don't know. It's a weird team because they are bad. Like, they are objectively bad. I'm trying to find the good in them, but they are an objectively bad football team. But like I said, I'm real confident in Joe Shane. I think he's a tremendous coordinator, or a tremendous general manager, a tremendous talent evaluator. So I think that's a great signing for the Giants. And then a not so great signing, the Carolina Panthers. Matt Rule, their head coach, went on record saying he wanted a great offensive mind to be his offensive coordinator. So naturally, he goes out and gets former New York Giants head coach Bob McAdoo.
Ooh.
Or I'm sorry, not Bob. Is it? I think
player.
Bob McAdoo's a basketball player.
Yeah, an old basketball.
It is McAdoo though. It's Ben McAdoo. That's why.
Big difference.
Ben McAdoo. Ben McAdoo is the offensive coordinator for the Panthers. Bob McAdoo is an old basketball player. We caught that at the same time. But I'm trying to pull up Ben McAdoo's career record real quick because it was bad. I don't know if you. 13-16 in 2 seasons. That is horrible.
Yeah.
Like if you coach 2 seasons, then you're bad. So that's rough.
That's so bad.
That's really rough.
That's bad.
I feel so bad for the Panthers, man, because they're in such a bad spot. Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator for the Giants, then became the head coach. So he's terrible. He is dog shit.
Awful.
Terrible signing. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of talking. Is there anything you want to hit on? Anything you want to talk about? Anything at all? Doesn't have to be sports. It can be literally anything.
Just throwing this out there, I am a Celtics fan as well. And it's a very poor time to be a Celtics fan.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many issues with this team. It is awful. There's just like literally everything that could possibly be going wrong is going wrong. We did trade for Bol, which would be interesting.
What?
Yeah.
Celtics in 4?
Maybe. I mean,
Celtics
I don't know.
in 4?
The thing is, he's injured for 8 to 12 weeks, I think.
That's just to give the league a head start.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Like,
just give the league a head
everyone
start.
else wins. He's injured for that long, and he's taken a major step back from his rookie year. But I think that's literally just because Jokic in those 2 years has been literally the most dominant basketball player in the league by far. But yeah, hopefully he comes to this team and we like actually develop him well. Instead of like doing what the Nuggets were doing, which is like literally just like putting him to the side a lot.
All I have to say to that is Celtics in 4. That's what I was thinking.
Like
Celtics in 4. Absolutely. I've been preaching Bears in 4. We don't have Bol. Celtics in 4. Although we do have Tony Bradley, North Carolina legend.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big Eastern Conference matchup.
It's just going to be who can outplay the other one between Bol and Tony Bradley. That's what it's going to come down to in the Eastern Conference Finals.
That'd be the craziest matchup ever.
For reference, I'm a North Carolina fan as well, so obviously, I love Tony Bradley, he's been all right this year. He hasn't been great. He's actually had COVID recently, so he hasn't necessarily gotten to play a lot.
Hasn't everyone on the Bulls though?
Dude, it's bad. It's so bad.
Yeah,
It's so bad. Like
yeah,
I'm opening up games and it's like, who am I watching? What is this team?
yeah, yeah.
Well, we had, I can't remember the guy's name, but we had some white dude who was popular for like YouTube mixtapes from high school on
Oh
our
my
team.
God.
Uh, some little white dude. He wore 00. It was the most fun thing in the world to watch, just because I knew who he was. I can't remember his name. Shoot, because he's very, very popular for like his YouTube mixtapes. He's just a crazy dunker. I'm not looking for Robert Parrish. I want current 00. Um, but we had all sorts of just weird dudes playing for the Bears or the Bulls. Mac McClung, that's his name.
I was
Mac
literally thinking
McClung.
that. That's insane.
Yeah, Mac McClung played like 2 games for the Bulls. Oh no, sorry, 1 game. In that 1 game, he was 1 for 1 with 2 points.
Oh wow.
But it was just the concept of like, yo, he can pop off at any moment,
Oh,
at
be
any
careful.
moment. Um, so if there's nothing else you want to get into, I have some questions here. I went to TikTok and asked for questions, and they sucked. I didn't get any. So
Yeah.
I went to a couple guys that I play Madden with. For those who don't know, I run a 32-man Madden league on the PlayStation 4, and I went to some of the guys in that league for questions. So starting out, we have 3 questions from my friend Judas. The first one being, if Tom Brady went to the Chicago Bears instead of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2020, how would that change the NFL? And honestly, if Tom Brady goes to the Bears, they do nothing because Matt Nagy's that bad. No, Tom Brady would have completely overshadowed Nagy. He would have taken over the offense. He would have. He basically would have said, "Dude, I am the coordinator. I run this
Yeah, sit
offense.
down.
This is my team." He would have run it. I don't think we won a ring with Brady. I
I think
don't.
he dies of severe injuries before that.
Perhaps with how horrible the offensive line is, it's very possible.
He gets to run
Um,
over.
2020, the offensive line was actually kind of mid, so like maybe he doesn't quite die, but he's going to get hit a lot.
Yeah.
And the defense, 2020, that was when it was kind of beat up. But this year, Brady would have died. Behind this offensive
Yeah.
line, he would have died. His
He would have
frail
been
old
murdered.
man body would have turned to dust. So Brady's a game changer. Maybe he takes that team to the playoffs and we get past the Nickelodeon wildcard round. But I don't think we're winning a ring, unfortunately, even with the GOAT, even with Tampa Tommy at the helm. That's how bad this Bears team was.
Yeah.
So the next question here, also from Judas, would you take a chance on Antonio Brown? Andrew, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
That's actually very, very interesting. Um, I would say,
Yo, you just went into like the void for a second.
yeah, I would say,
Oh, you're
I would
good.
say, 1 second, I'm trying to look up stats from this year.
Antonio Brown was playing really well before his freak out.
Yeah.
Do you know the full story? Do you know the what caused
Yeah,
the
they were
freak
trying to
out?
make him play,
Yeah.
when he was injured. I would say I would take a chance.
Yeah, if I was a team that needed a receiver and Antonio Brown
Yeah,
came to
I was
me,
gonna say.
I would take a swing at it. Why not? The fact that his most recent freak out wasn't necessarily him being an idiot
Yeah,
or him being sick. It was Bruce Arians being a dick. That makes me a little more lenient, right?
yeah, I'm
Excuse
very
me.
lenient now that I know that.
Especially after watching how he was treating his players in the wild card round. He tried to make Tristan Wirfs play hurt, and he
Yeah.
like elbowed a dude. Like I forget what his excuse was. He was like trying to stop him from committing a penalty or something. So he threw an elbow at one of his own players and got fined 50 grand for it.
What?
Yeah, Bruce Arians is just out here trying to
That's
throw hands with his
nuts.
entire team. It's crazy. So yeah, I'd take a chance on Antonio Brown. He had good production this year. Um,
Yeah.
He's still an elite receiver. It's crazy that he's still as good as he is after everything he's gone through. He has not
Yeah.
really lost a step, relative to his age, right? Like, obviously, he's going to lose a step or two with age, but
he's like
relative to
33.
where he would have been had he not had all these controversies, I think he's still on course. He's still on par, and I think that's insanely impressive. So I had another question here. I gotta remember who it was from. Oh, okay. Here we go. You're gonna like this one. We kind of already went over this one. It was opinions on the Cowboys and the NFC East future as a whole. This is from my buddy Jack. We already went over the Giants. We already talked about how the Giants are kind of in a weird spot. So with the Cowboys, I think if they get a new head coach, they're set. I think if
they're dangerous.
They fire McCarthy, that team's great. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't think Dak Prescott's a top 10 quarterback, but he's still a quarterback that can win you games.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about that there. Just get rid of Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is a cancer to any team he's coaching. That became very apparent when he was ruining Aaron Rodgers' chances of winning anything. Like, as a Bears fan, I feel bad for Rodgers having to work with McCarthy. But I also feel bad for McCarthy for having to work with Rodgers, so it goes both ways. But the Cowboys, they get rid of McCarthy. They're set. I thought they were a Super Bowl contender this year, even with McCarthy.
Yeah. They're set for a while too, especially on defense.
Absolutely.
Michael Parsons is insane.
Yeah, Parsons is gross, man.
Literally nuts.
Yeah. So then Washington, the name redacteds, who are revealing their name on February 2nd. It's apparently
it's actually so close.
Yeah, I think it's the Admirals that got leaked.
That's awful. That's the worst one I could possibly imagine, honestly.
Did you see all the different names that they were workshopping, like, at the beginning when they first announced that they were going to get, like, an actual name?
Is it like the Generals or whatever?
There
the
were
Red Hogs?
The Red Hogs, I think it was, the Generals, the Washington Football Club, Washington.
What?
Yeah, they were whipping out, like, soccer names. But my favorite was the Washington Demon Cats. And I'm so infuriated that that's not going to be that team's name.
Yeah,
they could have been the Washington Demon Cats. It's like that one TikTok sound where it's like Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And it's like, I could have been Turbo. They could have been the Demon Cats. God, that was cringy. Anyways, Washington's in a terrible spot right now. They have talent in their roster, but they're owned by Dan Snyder, and Dan Snyder's a creep and a disgusting human. Their stadium's falling apart. They're literally pouring shit on their fans. They're trying to kill Jalen Hurts with their bleachers. That whole team's a mess. I feel bad. I like the roster. Like, I think that there's some guys there. Terry McLaurin's great. Antonio Gibson's great. They have some pieces on defense with Chase Young, obviously, Montez Sweat. I don't think Taylor Heineke's the answer at quarterback, obviously. Oh, God, what is this? Why are you Snapchatting me mid-recording, Andrew? What is this? This is highly unprofessional. Okay. He has to go. Okay. So, basically, Washington, they're a couple pieces away, and I think Philly's on the come-up.
I think Philly will be really good in like 2-3 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Jalen Hurts can kind of work on some of the nuanced stuff of the game, that's kind of where he's struggling. But I digress. That has been the first very messy episode of the Hot and Cold podcast, Sports and More. I hope you all enjoyed. Once again, I am your host, David Miller, joined by my amazing co-host, Andrew Watkins, who will hopefully have a face cam next week.
But, fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Andrew, is there anything you'd like to close out with?
I love you guys.